in 5 minutes, right? We may finish a little bit before 1:15. So you can make a note of that because during class I might not be able to answer, or the chat might not be on when someone asks, right? What else? This class is really for lower forms. Older forms are welcome to sit in, you and adults as well. You'll be reviewing some basics, which are necessary to master anyway, right? Now I have on the screen a plan for what we're doing because I think we get 5 weeks of 5 sessions out of the program, the Monday class. Not everybody, but I think the Monday class does, right? So we're looking at what is a paragraph, how do we write paragraphs, how do we organize paragraphs. We will use a peel pattern, which some of you have used in school, I'm sure, right? And then we'll work towards doing a letter to the editor. Now, if we have time, we'll also do a letter of complaint as a kind of comparison. It depends on how fast we move. So it's not on the schedule, but that's what I'm thinking, right? You could note my contact information. And so then if you have an issue or a question, you could always send me a WhatsApp message, right? To the top right is a link where you'll get recordings to this class and also all the other classes for the summer session, right? I will share that with you in the chat a little later on. And for the YouTube recording, those of us on YouTube, so we'll post it probably underneath the recording a little later on, right? If you're joining class on YouTube and not Zoom. Send the recording link. Right, if you notice a troll, you could ignore them. Well, peel is a method we use to think about how to write a paragraph and how to organize a paragraph, right? And we will do that, we will discuss that today. Hey, no good morning messages, please. You know how you'll use Zoom in the past? Zoom used to have a cascading chat so that we could see all the messages one after the other. However, they changed their format, and so now each person's message comes in as a separate tab for us to click on. Right? And that takes some time, as you can imagine, in a large class. All right, so here's a good question. Are we using this to, so that's why I'm saying no good morning messages, just message if you have a question. I'm gonna assume everybody's saying good morning, right? We're learning how to organize paragraphs. The paragraphs we are working on, yes, can be used for argumentative writing. The letter to the editor is a type of argumentative piece, right? But it's not a straight up argumentative essay. All right, and guys, y'all could feel free to lower your hands. I will say, please don't raise and lower during class because some people get a sound on their end and it could be a bit distracting, right? All right, thank you to those that are putting on hands. I will try to give guides on what you need to write. But if you see something that looks like a useful note, write it down. I have posted the link to the PowerPoint at the same place as the where the recordings are posted. So you could always go back to it if you didn't finish taking on a note that you want to take down, right?
Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm turning off the chat for a moment. And I'm just going to say back a couple of things before we get into the lesson, right? So good morning again, for those who joined just now, right? The recording for this class will be available, but you need to give Sir, I think, to at least 24 hours to put it up, right? The main focus for our summer class, our July-August class, is paragraph writing for persuasive essays and persuasive writing and argumentative writing, right? The Saturday class is going to be doing creative writing, narrative writing. So two different topics. In case you want to attend both classes, you are welcome to. This class is for lower forms, right? Guys, the good morning messages on YouTube is fine. It's the good morning messages on Zoom that gets a bit overwhelming, but on YouTube is fine. Thank you. Right. So all the students are welcome. Our focus is on paragraph writing. You have my contact information. You could scribble that down somewhere. I am in all of the groups as well as the other admin, right? So if you don't write it down now, you could find me that way. Just the number does not serve, right? I will send back the link to access the recordings during class. Right. That said, let us get into class. Okay. So you see this little pen icon down at the bottom? That means you could take notes from this slide, right? So we are writing here. The structure of a paragraph depends on its purpose. What do I mean by that? How you write a paragraph depends on the purpose. Now, I have a diagram going sideways because I think it's cool. If you want to write your note going down on your page, that is fine, right? All right, so I'm going to turn on the chat and please answer any question if you respond in the chat, right? What are some purposes of paragraphs? What are some different purposes that you know for a paragraph? If you go into the kitchen to cook something, what you cook depends on the purpose of you. Are you cooking for breakfast? Are you cooking for lunch? Are you cooking for dinner? Are you cooking for a snack? You're cooking for you alone, for your family. You have to think about why you're doing it, right? And that will shape your meal. Will you bake a cake? Will you fry an egg? Will you bake some tomato choka? Will you make soup? What is the purpose? Right, good. Okay, Amara, one purpose is to inform. Anna, you were saying that to write, to inform. And then another major purpose is to entertain. Yes. Okay, good. To explain to the reader. So you all have the main purposes there already. And I'm going to argue that there are two main purposes, right? So we have our answers. The first purpose is to affect the reader's thoughts, right? So if we are affecting thoughts, what they think, we are giving them information and or we are persuading them, right? Now, when you're persuading somebody, you might have some elements in there where you kind of affect feelings, right? So where are some places these things might appear? Again, we're taking notes, right? I'll write it here. Take notes. And you could go down on your page. You don't have to go across. Right, and in the YouTube, I'm seeing too, to convey a message. Yes, so that's like to give information, to convey a message. So when do we give information? Maybe a little bit if we're writing an essay, right? So essay, but not the whole essay, some of the essay is us giving information. Maybe if we are writing a letter, right? And like it could be a letter of complaint because you have to say what happened that you're complaining about. And then a report, you could be right. If it's a report, then it's all of the report is you giving information, right? There's no, well, for CSEC anyway, right? There's no suggestions on what to do differently. There are no feelings supposed to be in the report. It's just this happened and this happened and this happened. Only information, right? But we also affect people's thoughts by sometimes trying to persuade them, right? So also this is an argumentative essay, right? Some of it. And also a speech. A speech uses probably more persuasion than an essay. A speech might give information, might have some ideas, but it will definitely have some bits and pieces of you trying to convince people to think what you want them to think, right? So I guess a speech could also, I'm going to put here expository speech, right? If it's an expository speech, it's giving information. But if it's a persuasive speech, then you're trying to convince somebody of something, right? Definitely not a story. Well, not in a direct way. I shouldn't say that. I guess stories do affect our thoughts. Have you ever read a story or watched a movie and afterwards your outlook on something changed? But it doesn't come out and tell you this is what you should think and this is what you should do. You see the story play out and you see what happens to the main character, and you kind of figure out from that, okay, well, maybe I should not go into the basement alone, right? So those paragraphs will be different. And that's actually the next section of our diagram here. The other main reason we write paragraphs is to affect people's feelings, right? And if we're affecting their feelings, we might be trying to entertain them. So that's like a story. A story is supposed to entertain them. And we might be trying to get them to feel a specific feeling. So get them to feel happiness, get them to feel sad, get them to feel like they could trust you, some other type of feeling, right? A specific feeling. And these we will see in stories for sure. So to entertain is stories, and then also parts of a speech, parts of a persuasive speech. Parts of a speech. Even if it's expository, you do want to keep your audience interested, right? Sadness, trust, definitely you can see this as somebody's giving an argumentative speech or a persuasive speech. Let me change this word to persuasive. Right? So somebody comes to address the student body about the importance of saving money. They are trying to get the audience to feel like the student audience, right? Get them to feel like they could trust the speaker. Get them to feel like they want to call up the bank and make a deposit now, open a savings account now, right? All right. So to recap on this slide, and you all are writing, you all are taking notes, right? The purpose of paragraphs could be divided up broadly into two categories. Either I'm writing something to change the way you are thinking, or I'm writing something to change the way you are feeling, right? And while there is some overlap, because if you give a speech which is meant to affect people's thinking, you might still include a fun little story to keep them interested, right? So there's some overlap. We are going to think of them as separate so we could work on the two different types, and because there are two different strategies for two different types, right? We're going to treat them as separate for the next 5 weeks. All right, so while y'all are taking notes, I'm going to give us 2 minutes to finish your note. And I'm going to turn on the chat. I'm just going through messages I have, and I'm going to turn on the chat in Zoom if anybody has a question they want to ask. That's there to entertain. It could be there to teach a lesson, but it leaves it up to the reader to figure out the lesson. If you're making a speech or you're writing an essay or you're complaining, you're telling people what the lesson is. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to remember. This is what you have to change, right? And so that uses a different type of writing and a different type of paragraph. Is a type that's meant to entertain readers. The entertaining readers part, that's the story. That's what we call narrative writing. That's what we call creative writing. Narrative because it tells a story. Creative because you use language creatively. And well, story, it tells a story, right? That is for Saturday. Saturday's class, we're going to talk about strategies there. For the Tuesday class, we're going to talk about writing that explains and persuades and argues, right? Writing that changes people's thoughts. So writing you would use for essays and for most of your letters. People are indicating they're finished. Thank you. Yes, another purpose for writing could be to inform. So what do I mean by an expository speech? Good question. An expository speech informs. Someone is raising and lowering their hand, I think, really rapidly in the Zoom chat. If you could just be mindful, if you're pressing a button by mistake, please try to, well, you'll take care of it, right? All right, yes. So an expository speech gives information. It would have been, or it could have been what you would have done for the SBA, the English SBA. And then it also might have been what you would do for the CAPE Communication Studies IA. Right? Because you research a topic and you give information. Versus a persuasive speech, which is, so like an expository speech, if the topic was smoking or vaping, the expository speech giver would come in and they would define it and they would say, these are the dangers, and they would say these are the statistics, this is the age group it most affects, it would give you information. This is the effects of doing it. But if it were a persuasive speech, the speaker would say, well, these are the reasons you shouldn't do it. And they would also include, like, if you do, this is the outcome.
Recording in progress.
So while there is some overlap between the two types, to get better at the writing, we separate. Okay, last 10 seconds here. And then we're going to our next slide, right? I'm very sorry. What you could do is take a screenshot and come back to recording. Oh, sorry, or come back to recording, right? But we do have to move on, or we run out of time and we won't finish. All right. I will always try to give you a 10-second warning. Okay, we have a brain cooler. Now my brain cooler is another school as is Epic Medieval Battles. But can you all spot anything wrong with this picture? You could attend my funny chat, so you could tell me. What are the things wrong with picture? Okay, the doggy, poor doggy has socks, yes. Or booties. What else? The clock, what's going on with the clock? Well, definitely time is wrong here. Yeah, anything else? The daily special is water soup. Maybe it's a dog cafe. Oh, the ice cream cone in the man's hand. Yes. All right. So water soup, ice cream cone. Yeah, if it's selling coffee, the thing, the special can be soup, can it? She's crossing on a green light. How do you say the green light? Right now, the sign is on the walkway. Okay. All right. Yes. Yeah. All right. Good. Yeah. Oh, look at this. The mug has two handles. That's another one. And this sign to me seems out of place, right? Because there's nowhere for you to turn left or right. It's the sidewalk. Right, yes. Okay, good. Other people see it too. Yes. All right. Let's go to our next slide. The structure of a paragraph. So again, we are so nothing to write here. This is just a discussion slide, right? So we're going to look at some examples of paragraphs by according to the purposes that I just gave you. So paragraphs that affect thoughts. So here's one example. In this day and age, students should be using laptops in the classroom. A laptop is a tool that helps a student become a digital citizen. He or she can work much faster, do different types of tasks, and produce better quality work. Each student needs one. Do you feel persuaded? Guys, I believe you there's a green light, huh? It's just I couldn't see it in the picture, even though I put the picture there in the first place and would have seen it when I put it. I believe you that the green light is the problem. Right. All right. So a paragraph that affects thoughts states the language clearly. What else does it do? Where does it state the main idea? Up front, right? Let's look at another one. If we value our young people, we will put a laptop in each student's hand. If we want them to move forward, we will give them digital textbooks. If we give each student a laptop, well, there's extra essay, sorry about that. We give each student access to succeed in the world. Now, both of these are arguing similar things, right? Which is that young people should have access to laptops to learn, to be successful. Nowadays, that's what they need, right? What's the difference between the top paragraph and the bottom paragraph? Think about it. Do you notice a difference in how it's stated? I know the chat is off right now. Seem more emotional than the other. Nothing to write on this slide. We're just talking about it. Now, both of them have clear ideas. To me, the bottom one seems more emotional than the top one, right? And it uses, like, it repeats certain phrases. Notice that it repeats if we want, if we, so up here, if we value, if we want, if we give, right? And then it repeats, well, give. So give, put is kind of the same as give, right? I list out 3 things we'll do. Put a laptop in their hand, digital textbook. When we do it, we give them access to the world, right? Okay, now let's look at some examples of the other types of paragraphs. Paragraphs that affect feelings. Yeah, so sorry, just based on what is being said in the YouTube chat, both paragraphs affect thoughts, but the one below is more persuading, and the one on top is more giving information, right? So see the little overlap we were talking about? This second one uses language a little more creatively. But both of them are affecting what people think. Right, now we're talking about affecting people's feelings. And I have 2 extracts from books here. There was a hand in the darkness, and it held a knife. The knife had a handle of polished black bone and a blade finer than any and sharper than any razor. If it sliced you, you might not even know you had been cut, not immediately. Anybody knows what book this is from? Some of you have to read it in school. No notes on this side. See the little discussion picture at the bottom? We're just discussing. So this is from the Graveyard Book. All right, let's look at another one. But sorry, before we go to the other one, when you read this though, how do you feel? Do you feel threatened? Do you feel unsafe? All right, now let's look at the other one. The other one is a more obvious example. Dementors are among the foulest creatures that walk this earth. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glory in decay and despair. They drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air around them. Even muggles feel their presence, even though they can't see them. We all know where this one comes from, right? Because we know which fictional universe has Dementors. Right. Do we feel a little scared when we read the second one? Or we recognize that the author wants us to feel a little scared? Right? So the second one is a Harry Potter paragraph, right? Okay. So depending on our purpose, we organize the paragraphs differently. Now here's another obvious difference we didn't talk about, the length. Notice that if we're given information, paragraphs are a little longer. If readers or listeners are in an area where they know they're being given information, then they listen. So, they're in a different frame of mind. You can make the paragraph a little longer. But when we are reading a fiction book for fun, we need to be entertained. We need it to be more relaxing. So the paragraph length varies itself, or the writer varies the paragraph. So that we will keep our interest, right? All right. Let's change sides. So we've looked at some examples. Oh, yes. What else do we have? There's a more fun one, right? We have the sunglasses on the sun. We have a polar bear. We have a person with heavy winter clothing on, right? Dinosaur. Anything else? Well, I guess a penguin. Penguins wouldn't be here in hot weather, would they? I think that's it, right? Maybe the surf shack that has things other than surfboards. All right. Now, okay, so this is Peel. We're going to introduce Peel, and then we'll be able to write again, right? All right. So, I want to open the Zoom chat if you have questions about Peel, and only if you have questions about Peel, right? Some people using an older version of Zoom will not be able to send messages, I'm sorry, on Zoom, right? So you could send them on YouTube live if you're there. And if it's a really important question, and you can't get an answer for it either through YouTube or here, you could send it to me afterwards, right? All right. Peel. So point, evidence, explanation, link. So the first thing we do with the paragraph is we state the point. Now, if we look back at this one, right? So still no writing, just follow along with the discussion, make sure you understand, right? Here is the point. All students should be using laptops in the classroom, right? So one main idea, a topic sentence, the first reason for your argument, right? Because again, the paragraph is supporting a bigger argument. Yes? Nothing to write as yet. We will break it down piece by piece and write it just now. Yeah? All right. The next thing we have is evidence in the paragraph. So if we look back Here, right, we had evidence in the form of a reason, a tool that helps a student become a digital citizen, right? So evidence, we give reasons, we give examples, we give details, statistics, definitions, illustrations, explanations, right? Then we give an explanation. So when we give a statistic or we give a reason, we give an example. So I say to you, young people could become digital citizens. What is a digital citizen? I need to explain my thinking. I have to help the reader understand the evidence I gave them by explaining it, right? So if I go again, here's my explanation. So they're a digital citizen, they can work faster, they could do different types of tasks, they could produce better quality work, right? That's what I mean by digital citizen. Okay, so I write a paragraph, I state the point, I give the evidence, I explain my evidence because not everybody thinks the same way I did, right? And then the last thing I do in my paragraph is I put a sentence that is a link back to the overall argument that I am making. Now, since we are working on paragraphs, we might not have those for this July, August, but that is ultimately what you have to do, right? So I have to connect back everything I said to the bigger argument. My bigger argument is probably that students need laptops, right? So here's the bigger argument. Each student, oops, not the T-Rex. Each student needs one, right? So Peel is a way to plan out and organize your paragraphs. Right, now we get into the point where we write. Here we have a little poster. We're going to go bit by bit. I've broken the poster down. The issue is though that it's a little blurry. Wait, we're going to skip the picture for now. Yeah, all right. So here what we'll do, we'll stay on the slide with the good picture and we will make the notes to the left, right? All right, so we're taking notes. Right? So the first thing we're noting, I know I have some questions in the chat, so I'll attend to them just now, right? So this is what we're noting. Our heading is Peel, right? And we explain it by a plan for writing paragraphs for essays. So not stories, right? But essays, speeches, and some letters, right? Some letters. Right. What does it stand for? So we're going to write out point, and we have to do each one individually. Evidence, explanation, oops, explanation going up a hill here. And finally, an L for link, right? And the link is back to the bigger idea, back to the overall argument. Right? All right. Now, if the writing on the poster is too small for you to see, that's not what you need to note. The poster is just there to be pretty and keep us engaged, right? What I'm writing bigger on the side in my beautiful and wonderful handwriting that is so close to calligraphy, I know. That is what you need to note, right? So we're going to go through it section by section and we'll get everything we need from the poster. But look at those cute frogs. How could we not have this poster? All right, so I'm going to give you a few 2 minutes with this.
Recording stopped.
Things repeatedly, we'll end up with a strong argument, a strong piece of writing. That's actually not a bad idea, you know, a poster with banana peels instead of frogs. I will think about how to do that. In this case, the frogs are related to the example. Maybe the example could be about the benefits of fruit, and then we could have different fruits being peeled. All right. Ready to move on? I'm not erasing as yet. I'm going to make because I know some people cannot see everything on the poster because of their screen. I'm going to write over what is on the poster. So if you want to work ahead and write it over, no problem. But if you cannot see it, I will put it together for you. All right, let's put a pause on the chat for a moment. Right? All right. So we're going to do an example and an explanation for each part, right?
Recording in progress.
All right, so we're going more in depth now on each letter in peel. So the first one is, well, example topic. That's our heading again, right? The example topic is, so the broad topic, if we were writing an essay, the essay topic would be, why do frogs make good pets? Now, personally, I do not want a frog as a pet. That's not my idea of a good pet. But it seemed like a fun example, so I went with it. All right, so point, let me use a different color, a nice green color in keeping with Froggy over here. All right, so point, right? This is the P part of peel. This is where you make your point or argument, right? You state your main idea for this paragraph. What is this also called? Isn't it also called a topic sentence? Right? All right, now we have our example. Right? So an example of a topic sentence that could be the P in a peel paragraph. Frogs are affordable pets. Right? So I'm going to pause again.
Recording stopped.
So our bigger topic, if we were writing a whole essay, we're not, but if we were writing a whole essay, or if we were given a good speech, a whole speech, we were given a whole speech, we would say the overall point of the speech, the overall point of the essay, said frogs make good pets, right? But I have to go paragraph by paragraph and develop that idea. So one of my paragraphs, I'm going to develop the idea that they are affordable. That's why they make good pets. And in that paragraph, the first sentence I say will be my point, will be my main idea, will be my topic sentence. And that is, frogs are affordable pets. All right, those of us in YouTube, please only message if you have a question or an answer to give related to something we're doing. Otherwise, I will turn off the chat, right? And those of us in Zoom, if you have a question, send a question rather than the phrase, I have a question. Because by the time I get to that message, I may have turned off the chat, right? And we had to wait till I turn it back on to send a question. Right. Some people are done. Again, you could work ahead with the poster if you could see it, right? It's the same notes we're taking from the poster. Okay, so I'm going to erase the left side and we're going to continue with the first of the two E's.
Recording in progress.
All right, after we have made our point, the next thing we go to is the evidence for the point, right? And then we explain it. Now, it is possible to switch those around. Like you explain first, and then you give the evidence, right? There's no hard and fast rule. If you think it flows better the other way around, use your judgment, no problem, right? It just both things have to be in there. So that color is blue, so I will go with blue. Evidence, right? So E for evidence. And we are supporting our points, supporting our main idea / point with, and what can we support it with? We could give examples. We could give reasons. We could give statistics. We could give expert opinion. Right? Now we cannot make these things up in a test condition in school. You can't be in the classroom and you don't know any frog statistics, so you make some up. You don't want to do that, right? And people, especially boys, just think, okay, well, I could just make it up and nobody will know. We will know. People will suspect. To make statistics believable, you need to put the source. So if you're at home preparing for an essay, or if you're doing the essay at home, find the statistic and put the source, right? Okay, so examples, reasons, statistics, expert opinion, all of this is evidence, right? Am I forgetting any types of evidence? You could tell me. All right, so if anybody in Zoom has a question, now is a good time to ask it. I might be being unfair to the male students. Perhaps girls do it too. I just have more experience with the boy students, but don't make up the statistic, right? It will sound suspicious. It's not going to sound believable. How are you supposed to use them for actual CSEC conditions or test conditions? Well, you're supposed to read wildly and make notes. Everybody knows where they could get access to our timetable. Yes, right? Sorry, it's too late for me and my handwriting. You guys need to save yourselves. But if something is illegible, like you cannot make it out, tell me and I'll fix the word, right? But so if you should all be following the channel, the lessons channel, and so posted the timetable, the link to class, the something else he posted there that you would need. I forget what. But the stuff that you need is there, right? And you could scroll up, even if you join the channel late, you could scroll up and you'll find it, right? All right, so if you have a question about what we're doing, send it, right? Oh, I forgot to write on the example of the explanation, but perhaps you all did that. Here's the example from the chart, right? So if we're writing this paragraph, the second sentence is going to be frogs cost less to buy and keep. Right? So our evidence, this is our evidence. They need simple food and basic habitat. Right? All right, one time, since I paused just now before I wrote that example, let's talk about, well, explanation from the chart, right? That one is in orange, let's go with that. So explanation, E for explanation. We are explaining how the evidence we just gave supports the point, right? And remember, our point was up here. We keep coming back to this. Frogs are affordable pets, right? So how it supports the main point, the main idea. Right? And our example, so I need to clear away what is on the right now, but everybody's long done with that, so that's not an issue. All right, this is probably, of all these sentences you will have to write, this is probably the longest one. Since frogs are inexpensive and don't require food, sorry, no, haha, not they don't require food. They don't require costly food or equipment. They are budget-friendly pets, right? So since frogs are inexpensive and do not require costly food or equipment, they are budget-friendly pets. So the last thing we have to think about is the link back to the overall topic, right? So if we are following along so far, Our paragraph reads like this, but it's broken up on one sentence for each piece of peel, right? Frogs are affordable pets. Frogs cost less to buy and keep. They need simple food and basic habitat. Since frogs are inexpensive and don't require costly food or equipment, they are budget-friendly pets, which is another way of saying they are affordable. All right, here's a good question in the chat about can you link, when you have to do a link, can you link future information? One of the things that makes a paragraph a good paragraph is that it doesn't mix its ideas. Just a second. Right. It doesn't mix its ideas. So let's say we were writing this essay about frogs. When we come to the link, if our other paragraphs are going to be things like, our other points are going to be things like frogs are cuddly and frogs are quiet. They don't make noise, right? Then if we use the link and we say, well, frogs are good pets because they're cheap, and then it will turn out they're also quiet and they don't make they are cuddly, right? It might sound like we're mixing ideas. So the most I would say that you could do is among other reasons, frogs make good pets because they are inexpensive. But that mightn't really strengthen your argument to see, right? Which is just an explanation for don't mention the future. I don't think you should mention the future points in the link, right? Statistics refer to information given in number form, numerical form, right? The word between points, main idea or point. There's a slash and then a point, right? That's what that is. Who do we mean by experts? We mean it wouldn't be relevant in every instance, right? Like it might not be relevant in this instance to go find a herpetologist to ask them about why frogs make good pets. But an expert would be somebody who's really knowledgeable in the field. So a scientist, a researcher. Right. Let's talk about the link, right? So L is for link, right? And we want to connect everything we've been talking about back to the oh, I see the poster has look ahead to the next idea. Sorry. I'll put that in brackets. And if you already wrote down from the poster, you put it in brackets and write sometimes, right? But when I'm writing over the notes, I'm not going to put that. All right, so link back to the topic, which means the overall topic, right? The overall topic was why frogs make good pets. Yes? Now, one way of teaching students to write paragraphs is to say, when you get to the last sentence, just repeat the main point. And yeah, you could do that, but that doesn't help your argument as much as if you say this supports the bigger argument because, right? So link means link your discussion back to the overall topic, right? And we have an example of a sentence that does the link for us for this idea. For these reasons, frogs are an affordable choice for anyone looking for a pet. Right? A different way you could say it is frogs are a good choice for a pet. Right? So this sentence kind of does the two things. It repeats what the main idea was the paragraph. And it says it links it back to the big idea. Anyone looking for a pet. Right? All right. Now I hear the frustration of how am I supposed to put in a statistic under exam conditions when I cannot look one up and I can't make one up, right? And so use a different form of evidence, right? Um, what could happen is before your exams and preparing, you do so much reading and you come across so many statistics and you make so many notes that they stick in your head, and then you might remember one um, in exam conditions in a classroom where you can't look something up, right? As well as you might, when you're preparing homework or preparing for a topic that you were given beforehand, you can look up statistics then, right? All right, if you have questions about this, let me know. I'm gonna turn back on the YouTube live chat. I turned it off just now. Keep your questions on topic. If I missed a question earlier, a lot of messages came in, so please ask the question again, right?
Recording stopped.
All right, thanks everybody who's indicated that they are finished. We could give 1 more minute. All right, 1 more minute.